So thank you once again for each and everyone for contributing to this IC, and actually speaking, a lot of things which are there in the slide, they're already spoken. So thanks a lot for that. So before I proceed further, these are my disclosures. I'm going to talk about the regulatory. Regulatory is something which is kind of a pivotal point for biosimilars across the globe, because that's where a lot of nitty-gritty needs to, you need to understand. And even it took a lot of time for regulatory to come into streamline in various countries. And still they are not a streamline, means nobody's on the same platform even now. So we'll talk about that. So I would sincerely appreciate the effort of Nilesh and Nicola. This is our publication. This is a list of our publications. We try to understand on various aspects of biosimilars from various angles. And one of our paper we are truly humbled to say that has become the policy document for biosimilars in Canada. So thanks to this entire group of people across the globe who have been a part of all these papers and contributed in terms of reviewing and helping us to understand biosimilars much more. So regulatory approval process, Nilesh has already shown this kind of pyramid. If you really look at this pyramid, that why do we have this pyramid? Whenever a new molecule comes in, you have no idea that how it's going to behave. So that's the reason that you do a large database of clinical studies, which comes on the base of the pyramid, has the highest volume. And you do those studies in RVO, in DME, in different indications, because you have no idea that how they're going to behave. So that's the reason that you have larger clinical trial database to be generated before approval as per the regulatory, which is right. But now with biosimilars, what happens? You see, these clinical studies, they go on the apex. On apex, you have the limited amount of clinical data. Why? That's where the nocebo perception comes in for many people. But they should not be, skeptical about it, because you are comparing and you are trying to show it similar to a molecule which already has a track record of safety and efficacy. So what exactly you need to show and prove based on the pharmacology analysis is your primary structure is in place, secondary structure is in place, tertiary structure is in place, or quaternary structure is in place. And then still, if you want to understand and if you want to really, check it that whether some difference comes, that is done with the help of limited clinical data. This is the global regulatory requirement, not only India, across the globe. So this is the paper which I was talking about. Now, it is country specific, based on the requirement of that particular country. For example, if you look at India, these are the three major biosimilars which were approved, but just look at the clinical trial design. 3 months, 6 months, 3 months. Resumab started with the least number of sample size. Probably, they give a platform, to understand, how things were done. And at this point, if you look at the overall clinical trial design, probably Reni-Eyes had the best clinical trial design, almost close to, what global clinical trial requirements are. But, this takes a time. Overall, in last 7-8 years, understanding has developed. Patients were minimal if you compare with the global designs. Primary endpoints, if you see, they are approximately at 12 weeks, as I said during Dr. Debulal talk, that why it is so. Now look at the global biosimilars. You have patient number much higher, but still you see the patient numbers are not defined and equal. So even FDA is not defining that, I need this certain number to be tested. So they also differ. But if you look at the primary outcomes, almost similar. We differ in terms of loss, and here it is the gain of letters with the margin of letters, that how much you gain. Study duration is equal, 12 months. So as I said in Dr. Debdulal's talk also, it is just the efficacy which is tested at these short time points, because these are all bioequivalence trial. Bioequivalence, if you want to prove, you have to have short time points. Otherwise, as I said, if you go on 12 months, 9 months, you cannot prove that there is a bioequivalence was there. So you should not have that negative perception. This was an editorial, actually, it was asked by the FDA reviewer. When we were writing a lot of papers, then, he wrote to us. It was rejected once. Then he written personally to us that, Ashish, I want to bring there. I do not know how it got rejected, but it was again published just to avoid nocebo perception, which keeps on, prevailing on biosimilars, both in United States especially, because Europe is a little more mature in terms of the biosimilars. Now, as I showed the clinical trial data of India and US, and you must have seen total duration 3 months, 6 months, 3 months in India. But you have seen 12 months, 12 months, 12 months in the United States. Does this make Indian molecules inferior? It does not. Why is that? It's all about the regulatory requirement. Which regulatory asking what? So now if you look at the Lupin's global trial, they have the sample size same as what FDA and EMA approved drugs are. Similarly, if you look at the even Resumab trial for their global approval for FDA and EMA, their numbers are same as which were there for the FDA by the other molecules. So it's all about, which regulatory you are applying for. Probably Indian regulatory, the need is much, much more for this country. We are catering 1/6 of the population of this world. So probably, fast track designs are there in DCGI, so that's fine. This is different in even Japan as well. Japan did not do for 12 months. Japan's sample size was less. So it's quite country specific. This slide was shown. So this slide means why I am showing this slide, because there again a regulatory involved here. What happened in 2015, initial 2 batches had some kind of inflammation. But over the time, you do not see that because regulatory changed. But again, the question comes, because we saw some kind of inflammation, does that make Indian molecule inferior? No. If you look at the Lucentis data, when it was in phase 3 trial, you had inflammation in anchor median of 17.1 to 20.9%. Can't you believe it? But you do not see that now. Because what happened over the time, the requirement by the regulatory, as I was discussing with Vidya again, I asked her to raise that point on endotoxin. Endotoxin limits have been strengthened over the time. That's the reason that you do not see that kind of inflammation with these molecules. And again, one trial approval, as Nicola said, that one trial approval, it gives to all the approval. Again, this is a negative perception, but again, a regulatory requirement. Regulatory understands there's a wisdom behind it, because Lucentis has never shown differential safety issues with different indications. That's the reason that even with biosimilars, you have one approval, same receptor, you have approval for all the indications. If Lucentis would have shown differential kind of inflammation, definitely regulatory would have asked them. Future possibility means this, I'm telling aloud. I see this happening after 10 years. But probably not today, means we were writing a paper on that, but my mentor, Dr. Cooperman, said, Ashish, stop at this point, because US is just starting to believe biosimilars. If you write this, the kind of belief that they're developing, that might go off. But I see that happening over the time, because UK has already slashed off phase 3 trial in many of their biosimilars, and there is a reason. You have inflammation percentage is approximately less than 1%. If you really scientifically see, to detect 1%, less than 1% of inflammation, the sample size has to go really, really wide, which you really you can't do that. So rather than save money, because the main advantage of biosimilars is saving money. You see the testament from Europe, there is no biosimilars has been withdrawn from the market till now. They are the most experienced nation. So education, and education, which even FDA EMA is trying to put in. So novel asset like brolucizumab might give you surprise, but not the biosimilars, which really emulate the product, for which safety and efficacy is already established. So if we believe them, I feel that many lives can be better, not only in India, across the globe. Thank you for your kind attention.